Okay, at this point, everyone should have pretty much a tree that is taped up. Don't worry that mine's black. I didn't have any masking tape, so I had to use gaffer. But you should have the tree with its bendy bits. Don't worry about the fingers for the moment, but it should be covered in tape and ready for paper mache. So once you have got it ready like this, all you need for your paper mache is some PVA glue, which we have. We're going to tip a reasonable, let's see what we've got. Don't put too much out at a time. Something like that should be fine. Put that back on. So you should be able to see not too much in there, but a reasonable blob. And water. Don't make it too thin, but obviously just have a look. Something like that will probably be okay. So it's maybe about half and half. And then we are literally mixing the water and the PVA glue, so it makes just a almost like milky consistency, something like that. Give it a good mix to make sure you've got everything all mixed in. It should, yeah, so you can see it's quite runny. Hopefully you can kind of see that it is quite runny. It's not really thick. Obviously if you make it too thick, or you know, it'll still work, but you will end up wasting a load of PVA. You don't need it that thick. Just putting the lid under there so it goes at an angle, holds down. Then we have literally kitchen roll. All I'm doing with this is ripping kitchen roll into relatively thin bits. It doesn't have to be particularly neat or anything. You'll find the kitchen roll rips better one way than the other. As you can see, I'm kind of ripping this downwards. If you try ripping it this way, it does not rip so well because of the grain in the kitchen roll. But as long as you get strips, that kind of thing, you should end up with a pile of strips that you can then use for your tree. I tend to not use the full length ones because it's just a bit easier. And pretty much from there, all you're doing is dipping this in the glue. Try wiping it off from here so you don't have glue dripping everywhere. And then literally get your tree. Hopefully I'm in shot here. And stick it around it. Like that. Pop that on there. Do not do the arms. Ultimately, this will dry relatively solid. And you want the arms to be able to be animated. So you don't want to put any of this paper mache mixture around the foam wire bits on here. Everything else, just literally place it on. It doesn't all have to be perfectly neat because this is what's also creating the texture of your bark on your tree. So yeah, it's continuing dipping it. I'm kind of not putting the whole thing in, just kind of leaning it on top, dragging my fingers over it like I say, and hooking it around parts of the trunk. Stick it down. Try and make sure it's actually flat against it so you don't get loads of bubble bits. If you do end up ripping it, it really doesn't matter. But it's just a case of, you know, you can kind of see how it's starting there. Stick any extra bits down and pretty much continue along those lines until you fill the whole thing, other than, like I say, these arm pieces, because they will be done with latex, which is kind of rubber, so it moves. If you do that, if you do it with this, it will stop them from bending and you won't be able to animate it. So that should be it. Just continue on covering all your trees, all down the bottom bits here as well. Doesn't matter necessarily at the bottom as long as you've gone around the edges of these, all of the top bits until it's completely covered. Now Try and stop that without getting glue.